There is a bridge in Michigan where the state will send someone to drive your car across for you. Not a tow truck, not an emergency service, a bridge employee who gets into the driver's seat of your vehicle with you sitting in the passenger seat or the back and drives you the 5 miles to the other side, then gets out and catches a ride back to do it again for the next person. They have been doing this since the 1980s. They do it hundreds of times a year. And here's the part that should stop you. The Mackinac Bridge is not a rickety mountain road. It is one of the great suspension bridges of the world, engineered to a standard that makes it one of the safest structures in America. Nothing about it is falling apart. Nothing about it is neglected. The state runs that program anyway. This is the story of why, what happens in the Straits of Mackinac that makes a perfectly sound bridge unbearable to cross, why the engineers built it to move on purpose, and why the safest thing about this bridge is the exact thing that terrifies people. Start with the water. The Straits of Mackinac are where Lake Michigan and Lake Huron meet, a 5-mile gap of open water separating Michigan's lower peninsula from its upper peninsula. Two of the largest freshwater lakes on the planet pressed together into a narrow channel. For most of Michigan's history, that gap simply could not be crossed. Ferries ran across the straits, and in the summer, the lines of cars waiting to board stretched for miles, and the wait ran for hours. In winter, ice shut the crossing down entirely. The Upper Peninsula was, for practical purposes, a separate country from the rest of its own state. People had been proposing a bridge since the 1880s. For 70 years, the answer was always the same: not there. Not across open water in a channel where the wind runs unobstructed for hundreds of miles and the ice moves in sheets. Construction finally began in 1954. What went up over the next 3 years is still, by any reasonable measure, extraordinary. The total length between anchorages runs about 8,600 feet. Counting the approaches, the structure stretches roughly 5 miles across the straits. The towers rise more than 550 feet above the water. The main cables are spun from tens of thousands of miles of wire. When the Mackinac Bridge opened in November 1957, it was the longest suspension bridge in the world between anchorages. Michigan had finally connected itself to itself, and then people started driving across it. Here is what the design does and why it matters more than any statistic about its length. A suspension bridge is not rigid. It is not supposed to be. The deck hangs from cables, and the cables allow it to move, and the engineers who designed the Mackinac Bridge built that movement in deliberately. The deck is designed to be able to sway substantially at the center span under extreme wind conditions. That is not a flaw. That is the entire mechanism keeping it standing. Rigid bridges break. That lesson was learned in the most public way possible in 1940, when the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Washington state tore itself apart in a moderate wind and collapsed into the water. Every large suspension bridge built afterward was designed with that failure in mind. Build it open, build it to flex, build it to let the wind pass through instead of fighting it. So the Mackinac Bridge has an open grate section in the inner lanes of the roadway. Wind moves through the deck rather than pushing against it. Every one of these choices makes the bridge safer, and every one of them makes it feel worse to drive. Because if you are a driver in the middle lane on a windy day, what you experience is this. The surface under your tires is a metal grid you can see straight through, down to open water 200 feet below. Your steering feels loose because the grate pulls at your tires. The structure around you is moving, and there is no land in any direction for 2.5 miles. Nothing is wrong. Everything is working exactly as designed, and your body does not believe it. The straits do not help. This is one of the windiest places in the Great Lakes, and the geography is the reason. Wind builds across hundreds of miles of open lake with nothing to slow it, then accelerates as it funnels through the narrow channel. On the bridge, there is no shelter, no hills, no trees, no buildings, just the deck and the air moving across it. When sustained winds pass a set threshold, the Mackinac Bridge Authority restricts traffic. High-profile vehicles get pulled first. trailers, campers, motorcycles. Above the highest thresholds, the bridge closes to all traffic, and vehicles are escorted across in convoys at reduced speed or not at all. Those restrictions are not theoretical. Empty trailers have been blown onto their sides on the deck. A semi has gone over in the wind. Michigan drivers have been filming these events for as long as cameras have been in cars. And the footage is exactly as unnerving as you would expect. Add winter to it, the straits ice over, snow moves horizontally, the bridge crews deal with ice forming on the cables and towers overhead and falling. So this is the crossing, structurally sound, meticulously maintained, and on the wrong day, one of the most psychologically punishing 5 miles of pavement in North America. Which brings us back to the program. Fear of bridges has a clinical name, Gephyrophobia, and it is more common than most people assume. For most sufferers, it is manageable because most bridges are short. You grip the wheel, you look straight ahead, and in 20 seconds, it is over. The Mackinac Bridge does not give you 20 seconds. It gives you 5 miles with no exit, no shoulder to pull onto, and no way to turn around. For someone with a genuine phobia, that is not an inconvenience. It is a wall across the map, and the Bridge Authority faced a practical problem because of it. Drivers were freezing mid-span, stopping in the lane, panicking 2 miles out over open water in traffic on a structure with no room for error. A driver having a panic attack in the middle lane is a safety problem for everyone on the bridge. So the Mackinac Bridge Authority did something almost no other transportation agency in America does. Instead of telling people to manage their fear, it built a service around it. The driver assistance program works like this. You pull over before the bridge and ask. A bridge employee comes, gets in your car, and drives it across with you inside. On the far side, they hand back the keys. The service is free. You pay the standard toll and nothing more. There is no application, no diagnosis, no proof required. You just have to ask. They will do it for anyone. Phobia, unfamiliarity with the vehicle, a driver who simply looked at the weather and decided today is not the day. Hundreds of people use it every year. On a bad weather holiday weekend, the requests come steadily. Now think about what that program actually admits. Every other piece of American infrastructure operates on a simple assumption. If the road is open, you can drive it. Green light means go. The Mackinac Bridge is the rare structure where the operating authority looked at its own crossing and concluded that a meaningful number of people, on a perfectly ordinary day, are not going to be able to do this, and that the correct response is not to shame them, but to send someone. There is no equivalent on the Golden Gate, none on the Verrazzano, none on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, which has its own fearsome reputation. Michigan is the state that decided to staff for it. And once a year, the relationship between this bridge and the people who fear it gets stood on its head completely. Every Labor Day, the Mackinac Bridge closes to traffic and opens to pedestrians for the Mackinac Bridge Walk, a tradition running since the late 1950s. Tens of thousands of people cross on foot, families, kids, retirees, walking the same 5 miles that other people cannot drive. The same wind, the same open grate, the same water below, walked voluntarily by crowds as a celebration. That is the whole contradiction in one image. The bridge is a monument Michiganders are proud of, a rite of passage, the thing on the license plates and the postcards, and it is also, for a real and quiet share of the population, a barrier they cannot personally get across. Both of those are true about the same 5 miles of steel. So here is what to take away. The Mackinac Bridge has not failed. In roughly 7 decades of operation, through winters that freeze the straits solid and winds that flip trailers, the structure has held. The engineering worked. The people who said it could not be built there were wrong. But the same decisions that made it survive are the ones that make it frightening. The flex that keeps it from tearing itself apart is the sway you feel at the center. The open grate that lets the wind through is the hole you can see the water through. Every reassuring fact about this bridge is also the thing that raises your pulse. The engineers solved the physics completely, and in solving it, they built something the human nervous system reads as danger. There is no version of this bridge that is both safe and comfortable. They had to choose, and they chose right, which is why the state keeps drivers on staff. Not because the bridge is failing anyone, because the bridge is doing exactly what it was designed to do, and some people, entirely reasonably, cannot sit through it. 5 miles, 200 feet of air, and somebody whose job is to take the wheel so you don't have to. Thanks for watching. If you want more of the roads America built against the odds and what they cost to keep, subscribe. There's a lot more out there.